There is an internal unconscious logic to the life you have created for yourself. You have possibly done everything it takes for your unconscious to keep your body safe and your mind coherent. Still being the same person, still being the person who can do one thing, struggles to do another thing, still the person who filled certain roles and has never learned how to fill another. Maybe even the ones you're most craving. Making the unconscious conscious is the ultimate thing that's gonna have you start the new year with a blank slate. Because until you've made the unconscious conscious, you'll keep unconsciously creating from the default, from the unconscious imprint. Hi everyone, I'm so happy to be back. Another video without a script, without a plan, just a tiny little idea and a lot of trust that whatever wants to come through is gonna come through for the topic that I put forward to fill with words and ideas and downloads and creative impulses. So I'm very excited where this is gonna go, and I can already promise you, because I feel it, that it's gonna be so worthwhile for you to watch if you are seeking a yearly reflection that is deep diving into the fabric of your identity in a whole new way. So stay tuned to learn how your last year was the perfect iteration of your identity and how understanding that in a totally new way might be so beneficial for you to consciously create the shape and form and content of the next year. The precise idea for doing a yearly reflection in the way I'm going to do it with you in this video comes from a single powerful principle that most people do not get. But you do. You will, because you are here, because you are meant to see this, because you are meant to broaden your horizon in this new way to understand your thoughts, your feelings, your actions, your outer 3D creations that you've created for yourself this past year in a new way. So I want to encourage you to take a look back at your year 2025. I want to invite you to consider the truth and reality of just one sentence. And this is going to be the leading phrase for the entire video for your yearly reflection. And the phrase is, everything you have done and created this past year has been your best solution. Everything you have created, you've put out, and everything you have witnessed and received has been your best solution. In every area of your life, what you have experienced has been part of your best solution of how to do life. Not how people do life, but how who you are is doing life. There are possibly some life areas where you can acknowledge, well, yeah, I don't really know what you mean by solution yet. We're gonna get there. But of course, yeah, everything went fine. Yeah, that's fine. But like, what about these other life areas where things did not work out the way I planned, the way I desired? The life areas that still feel like open construction sites. And you're gonna drag them into the next year not knowing how to fill the gap, not knowing how to turn things around in these life areas. And I want to let you know that the idea that you are living your best solution is equally applicable to all areas of life. The life areas where things worked out great, just perfect, just fine, doing so well, perfect. And also the life areas where you think, no, that definitely cannot be my creation. Because I was creating, I was planning, I was hustling for something else. And as it turns out, on a deeper level, multi-layered level of understanding, these life areas too are the product of the best solution that you have created for yourself of how who you are is able and capable to create their lives inside and out. Remember, I've talked about this before. Our system is perfect and flawless at putting out information, signals, and receiving filtered subjective perception based on what we can allow, based on what fits into our comfort zone, based on what fits into our self-concept of who we are, based on what fits into our perception of how other people are going to reflect us, based on default old programming, based on the desire to create and maintain safety. As we have learned the concept of safety to be created and maintained in childhood. So with this explanation, I want to add to the phrase, this past year in all areas of your life, you have created your best solution. The best solution of your default state. The life areas in which everything worked out just fine, where you feel successful, you've accomplished certain things, these are usually the life areas where our signal of the output we want to be creating, where our signal, our want, our desire, our goal, our plan is clear. Which means that it is not unconsciously contradicted by parts of us that tell us that achieving the goal, the plan, the accomplishment is in fact threatening our unconscious concept of safety. That was a long, complicated sentence. All I'm saying is, hey, beautiful, things worked out, you were successful, you accomplished these things, which means that there was perfect alignment between what you wanted to create and between what your unconscious, your default state, allowed you to create. Because these things were all safe to be created by you. These things were all safe to appear in your 3D reality. These things that you accomplished this year most likely were not a threat to your unconscious understanding of safety. By contrast, these other life areas that still might feel like open construction sites to you, where you are wondering how you're going to solve the problem, overcome the block, unstuck the stuckness next year, because apparently you did not manage to do any of that this year, at least not in the way you would have hoped, or not with the output and result that you would have liked. In this area, there is a contradiction that you are not yet perceiving. And now I did not say they might be. Yeah, maybe I should have said that. But honestly, this is based, or I base these principles, everything I'm saying, everything is always subjective, obviously. So for you, it's always like, do you resonate with a message or not? Let your resonance decide. Let your gut feeling decide. Let your creative impulse decide. Let your vibration decide. Are you in sync with this message? Do you resonate with this message, what I'm saying, or not? Take it or leave it, your choice. I'm not imposing any idea on anyone. But what many people do not understand is how what I'm going to say is such a benevolent perspective once you allow yourself to see it through. This is such a benevolent perspective because once you understand the mechanics of how identity creates, of how reality is created, once you understand this, you can claim not only the responsibility, but the power to create things differently next time. Once you understand this, not only can you take the responsibility, but you gain a new level of power, of agency to create things differently next year. New year, new chance. In fact, your new chance is starting right now, because we like to be so focused on new year, new game, clean slate. You can have your perfect new beginning at any moment you choose, on any day, in any month. You do not need to wait until the 1st of January to have your beautiful new start. You can choose to have that new start right now as you're watching this video, as you're gaining that greater level of clarity and understanding and compassion for yourself, for the mechanics at play, under the blocks, under the stuckness, under the goals that you missed, under the plans that you did not follow through on for a good reason, because everything that did not work out in the way you would have liked it to work out was intentional on a default state level, on an unconscious level. Everything that did not work out is part of the best solution you are living in these life areas. Because what is most likely at play here is a contradiction between the plan, the desire, the goal, the thing you want, and the conditions that your unconscious has learned, has imprinted about the concept of safety. And also about, which is essentially the same thing, but that's like another layer deeper, and about your identity, your self-concept, who you allow yourself to be, who you have learned to be in this world. How have you learned to be safe in this world? And where have you learned to fit as a person? We grow up filling the roles and positions in our family system that are free, because certain positions are already taken. And in some family systems, there is more or less space granted for the individual that comes in to fill the system according to their own nature. Because social systems always imply compromise in one area or another. And in family systems, this also implies compromise on who an individual is allowed to be, of who they can show up as in certain communicational and behavioral structures to be part of that system. And in this video, I do not even want to take the deep dive into that area, okay? But I want to take the basic principles of how the default state is created, of why you are behaving the way you are behaving today, to help you understand that even in the life areas where things seemingly did not work out this year, they did work out according to a script that you are not yet fully understanding, according to an imprint of who you are allowed to be in this world, of who you are allowed to show up as in this world, of how much of your potential you feel safe to unfold and actualize in this life. It's all based on an imprint. It's all based on a default state. And all we gotta do is make the unconscious conscious to start creating from another level of understanding. Making the unconscious conscious is the ultimate thing that's gonna have you start the new year with a blank slate. Because until you've made the unconscious conscious, you'll keep unconsciously creating from the default, from the unconscious imprint, from the conditioning, from the old programming. And you're possibly gonna keep creating iterations, repetitions of the old patterns that are playing out precisely in the live areas where you are wondering, but why didn't this work out this year? I tried so hard. I applied all of the effort. I was so focused on that goal. I so wanted that thing. Why does it never happen for me? Why am I not a person who can achieve that? And feel free to fill that with whatever life area, whatever context applies to you. Where you are wondering, but why isn't this working? I tried again last year. Or maybe you didn't even try. Maybe there was this project, this thing that you wanted to go after and you just couldn't. But you tried so hard, but you actually didn't do anything. Or you didn't do the real stuff, the things that would have actually moved the needle. Maybe you focused on the logistics around it and you hustled through the things that you thought you needed to do, the conditions you thought you needed to meet before the project could actually come to fruition. Where have you felt stuck and blocked and disappointed in yourself this past year? Beating yourself up, criticizing yourself without understanding the beautiful, benevolent idea that also in these life areas have you been living your best solution. In these life areas, you have possibly done everything it takes for your unconscious to keep your body safe and your mind coherent. Still being the same person, still being the person who can do one thing, struggles to do another thing, still the person who filled certain roles and has never learned how to fill another, maybe even the ones you're most craving. The position of feeling loved, feeling seen, being validated, being successful on your own terms, creating the thing that differs from what your family line has been creating for the past century. Maybe you've intentionally stepped out of line this past year to choose a whole new direction, and then your steps might have slowed down until you found yourself stuck, frozen, procrastinating, not understanding why you're not moving forward on this thing you so crave. Your stuckness is part of your best solution. Your procrastination, we've all heard it by now, procrastination is not laziness, it is part of your best solution. They are part of your unconscious self-integrity because your system is willing to do anything it takes to keep you safe, to keep you belonging, no matter how not belonging in the world around people you might feel. There is an internal unconscious logic to the life you have created for yourself so flawlessly. And if it appears differently on the outside, that is because of the contradiction between what we want to put out, between the plan, the desire, the want, and the contradictory programmed underlying unconscious beliefs of who we are and what we need to be doing in order to stay safe and in order to stay consistent as the person we are being, which is, for most of us, the person we have always been. Not anymore. Your chance to choose, that choice to do things differently next year is gonna be so much easier, so much more authentic if we understand that anything we have been creating this past year until this point has been unconsciously intentional. Your best solution of coherence, congruence, consistency. Your best solution of staying safe within your comfort zone. So I hope that you really take this in. The beauty in this, there are so many people hearing this and they go, so you mean it's my fault? So are you saying I'm guilty of the reality that is appearing because you say I've created this? It is the most empowering concept any one of us can believe in. If we dare to understand the mechanics, if we dare to look at our own unconscious patterns, pull them into the light, make them conscious, and become aware of the invisible threads tying us to a past we are so very free to let go of. Imagine pulling weeds. When we are pulling weeds, we want to make sure that we get them with the entire root so it doesn't grow back. And that's all we're doing, with the intention of making sure that the beautiful flowers next to the weeds are the plants that get all of the nutrients. We want to make sure that we pull the weeds so that the flowers can blossom. And we have the power to do that. That is agency. Understanding with love and self-compassion the mechanics of your own best solutions in any area of life. And yes, that might take courage. That might take a lot of courage. Really understanding all of our creations as our best solutions is the gateway to self-compassion and more self-love. In the presence of awareness, there is no more space for criticism, no more space for beating ourselves up about anything that didn't go as planned. So I want to encourage you for this yearly reflection to take a sheet of paper, to divide different categories, the different life areas that you want to look at, that you want to evaluate, And you write down the life areas. So that might be family, love, friendship, hobbies, spirituality, health and movement, finances, career. Just add what works for you, what's important for you personally. And then you list the milestones for any of these life areas from the past year. You list the big things that have happened or not happened for any of these life areas. You could also add your yearly goals list for this past year. And you could see how much items, how much goals you checked off, how many things you did of the things that you said you wanted to do at the beginning of the year. And then you transfer that to your yearly reflection sheet, listing all of these different life areas. Under every one of these life areas where you have listed the things that have worked out, the things that did not work out, I want to invite you to add this sentence underneath. This was my best solution. And after you've completed your yearly reflection with a sheet listing the life areas, adding that sentence that this is my best solution, I want to invite you to celebrate. Celebrate the best solution that you have created in any area of life. It did make sense because you make sense and your best effort makes sense and your best intention makes sense and your output makes sense, and also the result you created makes sense too. And from that point, you're invited to explore any life area that did not work out the way you would have liked, to explore the best solution you have created. You might want to ask yourself the question, how could this be my best solution? And then just allow yourself to explore. You might also ask yourself, in order to explore the logic behind that further, how did I expect this? How did I expect the way it turned out? You might even break this down if you're already familiar with the principle of parts work. I'm not going to get into that in this video or it would be hours long. But just the principle, if you're already familiar with that, you're invited to ask yourself, which part of me has expected this? Which part of me is not surprised that this is the way things turned out? And then just start exploring, be curious. Because exploring, beginning to understand that solution, gaining that higher level of awareness is what is the prerequisite for you to step into the next year, to step into 2026 with a truly blank slate, being able to create more deliberately, more consciously, less from your default state and more from the awareness of what you actually want to be creating. This is it for today. I am so happy. If you're still watching, thank you so much for being here, for sharing this occasionally awake space with me. I'm glad you're here. I hope that you have a beautiful end of the year, that you are stepping into the new year with excitement, with curiosity, with openness, with all of your potential knowing to be expanded and actualized in its purest form in the next year. So, thank you so much for watching, and I wish you a beautiful week. Bye.